A polling company surveyed more than 850 registered voters asking if they'd rather vote for Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, or a meteor hitting the Earth. 13% would rather have a giant meteor hit the planet than have to vote for either candidate. 43% said they'll vote for Clinton, 38% opting for Trump, 7% couldn't make up their mind.
Donald Trump created a firestorm on social media Saturday. He tweeted this photo of Hillary Clinton with the words "most corrupt candidate ever." Those words were written inside the shape similar to the Star of David. Within an hour, the hashtag Star of David was trending, with many calling the tweet anti-Semitic. Trump took down the original tweet, replacing it with this one. Same message, but replaced the Star of David with a circle.
We begin with breaking news. More than a dozen hostages and terrorists are dead when a day-long siege at a restaurant in Bangladesh ended overnight. Bangladeshi troops stormed the building where heavily armed militants held several people, including some foreigners. One gunman was captured.
The restaurant was in Dhaka, the capital, just 1 mile from the U.S. Embassy there. Jonathan Vigliotti has the latest.
The moment Bangladeshi forces stormed the restaurant was captured from a nearby apartment. As residents took shelter on the ground, troops carried out a coordinated counterattack, breaking through walls and doors. Military officials say in the end, at least 6 militants were killed and 13 hostages rescued. But police say 20 civilians were found brutally murdered, many of them stabbed to death. The 12-hour standoff began Friday night when at least 8 gunmen opened fire in the upscale restaurant located in the diplomatic zone of Dhaka, the country's capital city. Witnesses say the men shouted, "God is great," before detonating several explosives. Restaurant owner Suman Reza said he escaped by running to the roof of the building. Survivors who were injured were rushed to local hospitals in the back of pickups. This man's nephew was among those held hostage. They were able to communicate through text. He told us to convey that police should not fire. If they fire, we will kill you, he said. It's unclear if his nephew was among those rescued. The Islamic State was quick to claim responsibility for this latest attack, but U.S. officials believe al-Qaeda may have been involved.
And the restaurant was popular with Westerners, which likely made it a key target. An Army official says all 20 victims were foreigners. 2 police officers were also killed in the standoff.
A gunman killed 5 people and injured at least 20 others today when he started shooting in a cafe in northern Serbia. The man killed his wife and another woman before randomly shooting at other occupants of the cafe. Serbia's interior minister said the cafe guests eventually managed to grab the weapon from the man's hands when he tried to run away. The suspect has been arrested.
There's a lot of people living in Castle Rock going to be calling their insurance companies after large hail shattered windows and dented their cars.
Denver 7's Adam Hammond is live in Castle Rock tonight. And Adam, some neighborhoods, they got hit hard.
That's right. We're here at an apartment complex in Castle Rock. A lot of damage concentrated in one spot here because there are a lot of windows, a lot of cars. Take a look at this car. The back window completely shattered out. And I don't know if you can see these huge raindrops that are falling right now. A lot of people are out here trying to cover up these exposed areas. But this person may not even know what waits for them when they get home. And when this rain falling and more heavy rain coming, that's not going to be a good combo inside this car right here. Take a look at this video that we got for you earlier today. The hail did extensive damage to windows and roofs all around here. That hailstorm moved through Castle Rock early this afternoon when people were about to get off work. Imagine coming home to this scene. Car windows completely shattered out. Almost every car left outside in some neighborhoods were destroyed. Listen to these people who were taken by surprise by this storm. Listen.
It came down in buckets. The hail was bigger than golf balls, and there was not a thing you could do. It destroyed all my plants.
My radar app alerted me that there was a thunderstorm and hail headed my direction, and about 30 seconds later it started pounding down. I thought there was a tornado coming, and so I ran to the windows, and the hail was just busting through the windows, and I could see my neighbor's car over here getting destroyed, and a lot of the other houses here just getting drilled with hail.
That was Garrett Kaufman talking right there. He said he thinks he has about $10,000 in damage from the hail. And so now you know there's going to be a race to contact those insurance companies. But we know from some viewers in Highlands Ranch where the same thing happened just a few weeks ago, they still have not had those insurance inspectors out because there's a waiting list. So the people here could be in for a surprise when they contact those insurance companies tomorrow.
These images have been common in China in recent weeks. Heavy rains and storms have battered the country, causing severe flooding in many areas. In the city of Tongcheng in eastern China, floodwaters broke an elevated flume at a reservoir on Sunday. The incident happened after 3 days of extraordinary rainstorms. On the same day in central China's Enshu city, 18 people were trapped by landslides triggered by torrential rain. In Jinshan in Hubei province, water broke through dams and reservoirs, flooding farmland. Roads were damaged and houses were submerged so that only their rooftops could be seen.
There hasn't been rain like this in decades. I'm 74. I have never seen rains like this before in my life. It's scary.
In Jiangsu province's Yixing city, record high flood levels hit all the surrounding rivers. Floods caused power failures, affecting more than 6,000 families. Similar scenarios were also seen in central Hunan province, southwestern Guizhou province, and the southern Guangxi-Zhuang autonomous region. Meanwhile, transportation has also been affected across the country. Extreme weather has so far forced the suspension of dozens of trains and caused widespread cancellation and delay of flights. Experts say every year the summer monsoon brings water vapor from the sea, which affects the central and lower reaches of the Yangtze River. The rain band normally forms in mid-June. Rainfall will continue for some days before it moves north. This year, the rain is expected to start moving north around July 5th, when rain in the central and lower reaches of the Yangtze will decrease.
Well, we all know Hillary Clinton spent 3.5 hours with FBI investigators today in Washington, D.C. It's a meeting that's been weeks in the making as we wait to find out exactly what happened. Let's talk about what's next. Here to shed some light, E.J. Apt, a criminal defense attorney based in Atlanta. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Some of our viewers, of course, as we wait to find out exactly what the findings, the conclusions are, they want to know what is the possibility, what type of punishment could she be facing? What could happen next?
Well, I think it's important to parse out the politics from the law.
Right.
If we just look at the law for a second and put the politics aside, there's really two statutes in play. There's the executive order that the Obama administration has on classified information, and separate from that, there's the Federal Records Act. The executive order essentially would, if properly analyzed, show that Hillary Clinton broke the rules. It's a rule, it's a policy, it's not a criminal law per se, so she could be found as having broke the policy by having a private email server, by not securing classified information. In terms of the Federal Records Act, there's got to be an intent to really leak or distort classified information in such a way that raises to the level of her intentionally breaking the law to disseminate classified information to parties that are not supposed to have it. So that becomes a very difficult thing for the FBI or any prosecutor to prove, because even if you show she had her own email server, even if you show she mishandled emails, even if you show she wasn't taking proper precautions, it wasn't as though she intentionally leaked.
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you prove intent?
You're not going to, and so then you shift to the political reality. And the political reality is that no one in the Obama administration is going to indict Hillary Clinton. The FBI director reports to the Attorney General, who reports to the President. It's a non-starter. If someone other than Hillary Clinton were to become president, you might have an indictment, but I'm not sure it would stick. The best possible outcome would be if Hillary actually becomes president, then you might get an independent counsel appointed by Congress to investigate her and prosecute her. Is still going to have a tough time making it stick. It looks and feels and tastes a lot like Whitewater from, you know, a generation ago. But theoretically, if they can prove that she intentionally leaked classified information to parties that she knew did not have that clearance, she could be guilty of a federal felony and face, you know, 20 or more years in prison. It's a serious criminal offense.
I want to ask you a question because I have heard pundits make analogies, and they have said that this case, and they had drawn the analogy to General David Petraeus, of course, the former CIA director, who pleaded guilty last year to mishandling classified information. Do you think that's a fair analogy at all?
You know, that's a really good point. I don't know that it is particularly fair because Petraeus actually took pieces of classified information that had active, ongoing combat strategies and leaked them to a reporter, to an actual journalist who was doing a biography on him, who he was, you know, obviously having this affair with. But
so what I'm understanding is you're saying intent could be proven there.
Yeah, I think there's more of an intent there because he knows that that's actionable intelligence, and he's giving it to someone who's at least in name, in the press.
But if Hillary Clinton knew that she had her own server, which she knew perhaps was unprotected.
Yeah, and I think that there are clearly some advisors she was consulting that she knew did not have security clearance. But she was from the emails, if you actually sit down and read them, it looks like she's asking them questions about strategy and political advice, and she's not necessarily leaking actionable confidential information. So there may be a distinction there, both in terms of the law, substantively, and the intent. It's not as though she, you know, leaked information to the New York Times and said, hey, I want you to know here's what's going on in, you know, on the ground in Afghanistan or something like that. So I think there is sort of a difference there. But again, you know, if we're really talking about fairness, maybe the best thing that could happen if she becomes president is an independent counsel gets appointed, let that person investigate, let that person use their prosecutorial discretion and decide, do we present this to a grand jury or do we not?
Gee, you think you are, lady Hillary Clinton? That's it. What? Hillary Clinton, the 42nd president. Oh, she'd be the 43rd president. What? Hillary Clinton, the 42nd president. She'd be the 43rd president.
It's the kind of thing I was hearing only in whispers from journalists and political types about Donald Trump's real, hidden, deeply embedded motivation. But now, some pundits are saying it out in the open, such as New Yorker writer Mark Singer.
Donald Trump does not want to be the President of the United States.
On CNBC, Wall Street Journal columnist Holman Jenkins offered a similar analysis.
He's not taking this seriously. He's not started spending his money like he promised to. He has not broadened his appeal like he said he was going to. Does he really want to be president? I ask myself.
And MSNBC's Rachel Maddow, questioning how some of the campaign spending is going to Trump businesses, said this.
I mean, the expenses, when you look at what the Trump campaign is actually spending its money on, what they're actually spending their time doing, it's more like a concert tour. So the polite way to say this is, it's a racket. It's not designed to necessarily win the election.
Washington Post editorial page editor Fred Hyatt says maybe the Republicans could declare Trump the winner in Cleveland, then persuade him to go home. Quote, it could work, though, if, as many have believed all along, Trump does not really want to be president. He wants to be elected, sure, but does he want to serve? He wants to be respected as the champion, but does he want the prize? Another Washington Post piece floating the theory that Trump is a Democratic plant whose goal is to elect Hillary Clinton. Okay, this is mostly speculative nonsense, mostly from fierce Trump critics. I've known Trump a long time, and he's an extremely competitive guy who believes what he says, and Trump himself dismissed the idea.
You faced a lot of criticism out there for people saying that your motivations are really about your brand.
No, I don't care. I don't care about it. If it was about my brand, I wouldn't have done this.
Now, did he originally think he'd get to the White House? Well, he told me in our first Media Buzz interview last year that his chances of winning the GOP nomination were 15 to 20%. Is he making mistakes that cause people to doubt his strategy? Sure. But the idea this is all a branding exercise, that Trump is secretly trying to lose, well, the armchair shrinks need to come up with a better theory.
A lot of excitement outside the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday. The High Court ruling Texas lawmakers went too far by imposing unnecessary regulations that had forced most of the state's abortion clinics to close.
Against ISIL, the militants have struck back against Baghdad with bombings that killed at least 126 people. It comes within a week of the recapture of Fallujah by government forces, and it's the worst attack this year in Iraq's capital. CCTV's Jack Barton is in Baghdad.
It's the fasting month of Ramadan here, so the streets are virtually empty during the daytime. Most of the shops shuttered. They really only begin to open in the evening, after sunset, when people come out to take a meal, to meet with their friends, to go shopping. And it seems that the bombers really chose the busiest time of the evening to launch their attacks. There were two, a smaller one in North Baghdad, a big one in central Baghdad, just a few hundred meters from where I'm speaking, both of them in predominantly Shia neighborhoods. I was at the central Baghdad site a short time ago. A lot of grief, a lot of anger about what they perceive to be failures in the security system here, but still many, many bodies being taken out of that building almost 24 hours after the bomb there went off. So it's very clear that that death toll is likely to climb much higher. And this is a clear signal that even though ISIL is losing a lot of ground on the battlefield, they still have the capability to strike with suicide attacks at the most vulnerable people, the innocent civilians.
We're also continuing to monitor a situation developing right now in New York City. The bomb squad is on a scene there in Central Park after an explosion injured one person. Police are still trying to figure out what caused the explosion. Could fireworks this holiday weekend have anything to do with it? A teenager is in surgery, we understand, after part of his leg was severed in that blast.
I have no idea what it was. It sounded like a cannon. So that's why I thought it was like a 4th of July thing.
All right, the area around the incident still closed, but the rest of the park remains open to the public. Much more right after this.
The concerning thing is that law enforcement officials tell CNN it has IED components, and a witness says the victim appears to have stepped on it. What does this sound like to you?
Well, we don't know yet, Brianna. There's so many possibilities here. They've cordoned off the area to keep other people out so the investigators can work. And you have probably the finest bomb technician investigators in the world in New York City, from the NYPD to FBI, ATF. They're outstanding. They work very closely together all the time. And I would expect them to gather the evidence, analyze it, and be able to come up with some idea of what type of device it was, what triggered it, and go from there with the investigation. So we'll await the report from the police commissioner, hopefully soon.
All right, and I do want to let you guys know, because we are getting in some new information. Law enforcement sources are telling CNN that this appears to be some kind of homemade explosive material that was left in the area. And this is interesting because the male whose foot was severed was not involved. That is what sources are telling CNN. His friends were also cleared. Police believe that he stepped on the material and it exploded. So, Harry, what is your impression of what's happening here?
I'll tell you, Brianna, you know, the fact that the park has not been evacuated tells me they know something we're not telling us yet. That because, you know, especially it's Ramadan, we've had attacks in the last 2 weeks. You know, the first thing the police would think is, listen, let's get everybody out of the park because we don't know if there's any more bombs laying around. Okay. Now, the fact is that the police had not done that. All right. So I tend to think that they know exactly what's going on here and that we're going to find out in the press conference. But, you know, they probably feel very secure that there are no other bombs in the area, and that's why they haven't closed the park. So that's the only thing I can think of right now. So I think we're going to get some news from the police department when they come out in a half an hour or so saying that was the only bomb and this might be a firework. I'm not sure. Nobody really knows. But not evacuating the park is a big